we have a pretty big agenda. We have a few more people than we did for transportation, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Pause meeting to order. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Want to be funny like you.
I play county fair. I get the matinee at the county fair. Butter cow and two kids.
So good.
Very.
All right, there we go.
I'm a long way from the plan.
Oh, good.
Okay, Jackie, we have a quorum.
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay, and we did post the agenda. Announcements of any changes.
Okay, yes, we have several different things that I would like to add to the agenda. Number one, and you have before you a memo on hiring consultants, Dudek, and I would put that after item H. And I will explain that when we get there. And then I'd also like to add a brief discussion on the response, our response to the fire disaster. And a little bit of discussion of that. Also, I want to mention to you that after this meeting, be able to take those of you that can stay on a tour next door of the building that, of the boardroom that we would possibly be renting. So we want you to see that and understand what that would look like. And then you'll find out next Thursday, this Thursday, we're also offering a tour of another site completely. And then we also want to discuss time and meeting time and participation. So the one item that does definitely have to be added to the agenda is DUDEC because that's an action item.
The last one.
The last one was Transportation Committee.
Added that.
Okay, I think we need a motion probably to add that.
Yes, I need a motion to add that to the agenda.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chair.
I lost my.
Are there any, all those, again,
Any opposed?
yeah, any opposed again? Any opposed? Any abstain?
Okay.
Okay.
Move on. Okay. Consent calendar.
I think we have public comment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, public comment. Sorry.
I don't think any public comment.
I thought Natalie said there's no public.
Okay,
No, she said that wasn't. So then we will move on to the consent calendar. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
a puff, second?
Okay. Okay, we have motion for the opposition. Any abstentions?
Pivotal abstain on the minutes.
Okey-dokey. Other abstentions? Okay, we'll approve. Here we go.
Hey.
On independent audit report. B,
And the action, you're talking about the city selection committee?
Yeah.
Okay, so city selection committee, as you probably know, or maybe you don't, city selection committee only notifies mayors. So maybe several of you might not know, but January 21st in this room, there'll be a meeting of the sector, the West Side sector at noon to vote on our member of La Casa, which is the Regional Housing Trust. Sitting next to me today is Beverly Hills Councilmember John Marsh, who is seeking re-election. He has been our delegate and has been working with Ronson since the inception of La Casa. And he is here to answer any of your questions and also to ask you for his vote for re-election. So, and the action item from this would be to send a meeting notice to our cities to reinforce the fact that they will be here at noon on the 21st, and also to consider whether you want to make a recommendation. So, Mr. Marsh, Councilman.
Thank you so much. So La Casa, you probably know, is the Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency. It was formed a year and a half ago by state law. Of course, they didn't fund the agency, which is kind of typical for the state. Measure A, which passed recently, will fund it. It doesn't only fund the replacement of Measure H, it funds La Casa. Now, I know some of us didn't think that the best way to fund it was an additional sales tax. There were other ways of looking at it, but there it is. So it's actually going to get going. I've been there from the very beginning. My alternate, each member has an alternate, is Ronson. And I feel we worked very, very well together. While it's going to be a very interesting time now because we may see that there are going to be some laws or suggestions in place to remove CEQA and that sort of thing. And I think it's very important for us to make sure that they're not abused. We want homeowners in the area to be able to rebuild. But we also, I think I've been a voice of local control and suggesting that planning should best happen at the local level. And any of the suggestions that we use affordable housing to eliminate local protections and control is something that I've been opposed to. Each meeting before and after I speak with Ronson, I believe that in many ways that perhaps I'm more aligned with the South Bay than some of the cities in our COG, that West Side COG, which would include Santa Monica and West Hollywood and Culver City, that sometimes don't have a problem with preemption and local control, which I do. Clearly, we all need to support affordable housing, and hopefully we will make sure that we're getting value for money too, because we've seen there's so much taxpayer money that goes to some of these programs, and what do we have from it? So I'd love to be able to continue. We had a shorter term just because the agency was started now. So it was a sort of a capped term. It wasn't the full term. Some of the other corridors are there for 4 years. We were only there for 1.5 years. And I'd love to be able to continue with Ronson as my alternate. And I'm happy to answer any questions. It's just hired a CEO recently, someone from the private sector named Brian Johnson, and I think he's going to do a great job. I was on the selection committee, and I would have thought, oh, a representative of developers, this is not necessarily the person we want. He was absolutely by far the best candidate, and it was great to see that we unanimously supported him. And so we're just really getting things off of the ground now with funding, and I encourage everyone here to be involved with this too. And Ernest said we'd be happy to answer any questions along with Ronson.
Thank you. Any questions?
Do we know for certain if Measure A funding can fund our housing trust, our regional?
Yeah, there's going to be ways of doing it, and there's going to be formulas, absolutely. And supporting housing trusts, our city and our COG doesn't have one. And in fact, I've told them that they should look at South Bay COG as a model, that we should in the West Side have something like that, housing trust. Those are the sorts of things that we're going to do. It's not going to just be, I personally want to make sure that the money goes funneled through so that the local communities have more control over what they do. And a regional housing trust or a local housing trust is a way to do it. Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
losing, thousands of units of housing, bad will get worse. And then we can add on to that. Not that I want to be a wet blanket, although a wet blanket.
That would help put out the fires.
Yes,
And then we're going to have a tremendous need for construction workers, which of course we're going to need to house them during this. And I think people have that feeling of urgency that we need to start now with planning of how we're going to respond and help people rebuild quickly. But also on the side of, where there might be opportunities for doing some affordable housing, dare I say, let's not let a good crisis go to waste, because I think now people get it. But I'm just afraid that's going to wear off. So I don't know, what can we do to?
Well, we're not going to be funded until April because the tax doesn't kick in until, and we're planning now, we're actually borrowing money on the basis of that to get staff together. But policy is going to be important because we're not going to have the money right away. So looking at policy, you probably have read and heard that there are people who want to maybe take some of these fire raged areas and densify. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But part of I'm also have been on the sort of subcommittee, the legislative committee there, talk about what we can do. And so all good ideas can either come to me or to Ronson for us to discuss policy. That's one thing that I think we're going to be able to do is we don't have the money right now, but be able to lend a voice to whatever Sacramento has coming at us, and you know they will. And I agree with you. Let's see, hopefully the state has been very stingy about money. And is there going to be federal relief money that we can use to build temporary affordable housing that we can maybe leverage into permanent? These are all issues that we're going to have to talk about. In fact, next LaCasa meeting is in like a week or so, but the last one was before the fires. So there's a whole new range of things for us to talk about. I agree with you. I think we have to make that policy a priority as well.
I was gonna, oh, go ahead, Vin. I was gonna bring this up later, but one of the things that's been making me crazy over the last weekend is the statements by our elected officials that we have to cut red tape and stop the bureaucracy or whatever. And what that means is, are they going to fund more planners? Every one of your cities has had a problem expediting applications. It isn't that you're sitting there and saying, oh, I think I'm going to hold this guy up. There's nobody in your city to do it.
Right.
And so now LA, which has had a problem in the first place, nobody's talking about hiring more people to do the work. And so it's like.
I agree. They need to hire more people to do the work, but the work needs to be done. You can't just say, we're gonna get rid of the rules to expedite it,
Right.
because then you're creating the next crisis.
Right, and you have to, and the eliminated CEQA when this is all a climate crisis is a little bit.
Well, that's what I'm
strange.
saying. It's putting more people into areas that are at risk doesn't make a lot of sense, but yes.
Good.
John, hi, Wally Simbab. I wanted to say that I've admired you from afar. I monitor the Cali webinar that comes on every Sunday or every other Sunday. You're the reason to really attend. You're just, I'm a big fan. So
Thank you.
I'm glad that you're here, and I
Appreciate it. I wasn't there yesterday because I'm still dealing with
mentioned that to you.
with the fires. I told Julie, but I also admire your work. And one of the things that I think that came out of this, and why, again, our COG is small. We don't have our own offices. We don't have permanent staff, which I admire you and Jackie and all of the work you've done, is when you talk about, for example, one thing, street activation. People always talk about we've got to densify, and that's going to activate the street. And you correctly pointed out what makes absolute sense. It's not densification of population that causes street activation. It's densification of businesses, of restaurants. And that seems so intuitive, but you proved it and your study proved it. And so, again, to counter some of these narratives that are being used to preempt us, that's a larger issue. As you know, I obviously take that attitude into LaCasa, saying that we're representing cities. You've got LA has representatives there. It's actually a little more balanced in terms of the representation than, for example, the Metro Board. We have more city representatives. We have from small cities as well, and always sort of looking out to avoid being bowled over by either Los Angeles or the state and that sort of thing. And all of us know that what makes our communities great is that they are communities, that even within the South Bay or the West Side, they're all very different and we stick together. But from the individual, we understand each other and appreciate each other. And we do not need one size fits all prescriptions, which sadly we get a lot. So I appreciate that comment, and I hope I'll be back at Cali real soon because it's a great organization. For any of you here, you're all welcome. Cali is the California Alliance of Local Elected Officials. We generally meet every Sunday at about 4. It's virtual. And one of the main issues we talk about is land use and planning and preemption. And it's more than just sort of group therapy about preemption. We try and find proactive solutions. And Wally, you've joined it, and I've also appreciated everything that you've had to say.
Just so everybody knows, John is the clearest thinker on that entire committee. Only just to hear his thoughts at the time. So
Thank you.
why did you tell me about your attendance? So
You're very kind. Thank you. But if there are no further questions,
Zane.
Hey, Zane.
Hey guys, both the voice of local control and affordable housing. That's much needed, and a balance that we should all strive to strike. I wonder, when you talk about federal housing funding, whether, is that dependent on any new laws coming into existence?
No, I'm saying maybe there's going to be federal emergency relief funding, some of which can be used to house temporary workers or whatever. Federal housing policy, and I think we're not going to see a trend, has, you know, for example, LIHTC or whatever, less and less money available. And with the new administration, they may want to punish California.
Right.
But so that's nothing, you know, obviously we have to leverage anything we can, but I think we're talking about, is there going to be federal funding available for disaster relief? And can some of that be used for either temporary or, you know, because one of the major impacts of these fires is going to be displacement. Now, in some cases, like in the Palisades, you know, it's people who can afford to go elsewhere, but it has a knockdown effect then. And we need to make sure that the DA, someone I've went to kindergarten with, Nathan Hockman, enforces anti-gouging laws, you know, that sort of thing, because you're going to have that knockdown effect of people, certain people, unscrupulous people trying to take advantage of that. But hopefully, as said, whatever federal funding is available, some of it may be discussed. Can it be used for temporary housing for workers, of people who have been displaced? Not everyone in the Palisades is rich. You've got people who have inherited their homes and basically they've lost everything. And you know, I ran into one of my friends yesterday who lived at Sunset Mesa, which is next to the Getty Villa. You know, all that was left was the chimney, and they're dealing with that. Unfortunately, they'll be okay. But
do we have any idea of the extent to which these folks were underinsured and that they bought their house, let's say 10 years ago, and it was
I think that will come out in to give you just an anecdotal. My friend lost his insurance, had to go to FAIR, which is the state housing. And actually it was interesting because we suggested he get an insurance adjuster because we know private insurance companies might try and screw some of the people. He said FAIR was basically, which is government run, ready to write him a check right away. Now he's gonna, you know, do his due diligence and that sort of thing. But yeah, and obviously another effect, but you know, this may be something that when it comes to recommending legislation, La Casa can get into is we're gonna have difficulty getting insurance. And
I just wonder, we know construction costs from our own public works projects has increased dramatically in the last 3 years. So even if you just got insurance on your improved property value 5 years ago,
yeah,
you're probably SOL right now to rebuild, right?
yeah, well, and also with a disaster of this magnitude, the competition now for, you know, are people going to rebuild? I mean, there are so many unanswered questions. I just give you another example before you, I don't want to take too much of your time, but my son's girlfriend, her house luckily survived in the Palisades, but it's surrounded by a desolate area. Are they going to go back and live there for 5 years? I mean, you know, are people going to rebuild? Are we going to see corporations trying to buy up large plots of land to hold on to?
Foreign interests.
Or foreign interests?
Let's say Jermaine.
Yeah.
Topic at hand.
So, okay, so the action is to send a notice to our cities about the meeting on the 21st, which is a week from Thursday, but also whether you want to make a recommendation on this position.
Well, and I would appreciate a recommendation. I would also appreciate everyone go to their mayor, and if the mayor doesn't want to come, they're allowed to appoint someone to be able to come back in a week's time here. The meeting we're going to have for the corridor selection is going to be here, convenient to you, and to support me so I can continue. That would be much appreciated. And as said, Ronson is my alternate. That would continue. And that means it's a team effort. So
just also want to clarify, when your mayor can't make it, they do need to email the selection committee, they need you as alternate, right?
Right.
So just make sure that gets done, or else you'll come and not be able to vote. But that's very important. And then I just want to concur what Councilmember Mersch just said. He's been a great thought partner, and he's been very generous with his time on this committee, and we developed a really good working relationship in La Casa, and hope to continue the partnership with West Side cities.
There's one last La Casa policy question. Do they have a position on how many permanent staff they intend to add as a result of this?
So the last meeting, Ryan Johnson, like he's the only one on staff. They're looking to get a CFO, which they need. They do not have yet a target. And I think the goal will be to not overstaff,
Let's hope not.
Well, and on the other hand, the problem is sometimes with all too much consultants and that sort of thing. But I think our hope is that, it's certainly my hope, that most of the money go to actually doing the job of the agency rather than staffing it. This is a guy from private equity, so hopefully he is, again, he wasn't we had people from, public agencies who are doing it. And this is a guy who hopefully will follow what he's done in private equity, which is not overstaffing. So that's one of the reasons I supported him as well. And, right now, for example, we're living on a grant from like the Hilton Foundation, which donated the money, and we're meeting at MWD, Metropolitan Water. So originally they were going to charge us 20 grand, and no, it's for free now. So I agree with you. We want all the money to go to do what we need to do. And unfortunately, you see, with Measure H and a lot of other things, that has not been the case, and there has not been a good enough local return.
Thank you.
I think I'll entertain the motion to go ahead and forward this to all of our mayors and with the recommendation.
Also got a second.
And the recommendation is to support.
Absolutely.
Who made the motion? Any opposition? Abstentions?
Thank you. Go ahead, Jack.
There's a second part of this, which has to do, Nina is new here, and we should introduce Nina tonight is here. And also David Bradley is on the screen. David is the new delegate for Rancho Palos Verdes. He's not voting today, but he's here for a little bit.
Yep.
Coming.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you.
For purposes, and Jesslyn is also new.
Thank you.
From District 2. But for purposes of these city selection committee appointments, you should know it's run by the county. It's run by what I would really call, in not the greatest sense of the term, a bureaucracy. They never notify the COGs. So if you get a notice from the city selection committee, I would love you to pass it on, because we can then promote candidates that we want. Right now, Gateway has contacted us, and they have voted for, they're having what happens is the sector votes among themselves, and then there's a countywide vote. And Gateway has asked us to support their people, Fernando Dutra for Metro and Jennifer Perez for the executive table, which is the person that we have Paige from Redondo Beach on our executive table. They're concerned that there might be somebody who will go to the full county and try to overturn their election. So they wanted to make us aware of that. They also wanted to propose, or ask if we would be interested in lobbying for the full city selection committee to either have to ratify the local results or have no ratification at all. If the sector votes on a sector candidate, then the sector should not have to go to the full committee for ratification. And so I don't know if you are interested in getting involved in that or not.
Comments?
I would just like to add that the quorum is really important. Otherwise, it's very painful. So whatever you just make sure you do have a representative at the city selection committee. The Gateway COG has spent about half a year trying to get a rep because they can never make quorum. So for all the new folks, it's just really important that your mayor does delegate someone to come to the meeting.
Yeah, and I'll just reiterate that, right? I mean, we've had any number of city selection committee meetings downtown, right? They don't have a quorum. This past November, they had one in Long Beach associated with the Cal Cities event. They didn't get a quorum. I know Jennifer Perez has been out there for, pending appointment for months, and they haven't gotten a quorum, right? So it's a problem.
And I think we've tried, to do something about doing a Zoom meeting, but that is.
State law doesn't allow.
Yeah, but we can't get the law to change to do that. So if Gateway asked if we're interested in doing anything about changing that, if you're interested, let me know. I don't know if you want to take that on.
Yeah, does anybody have any concept to actually taking that on and joining? Because it says to support COG's lobbying. So that would mean we would jump into the fight.
Well, from what I'm hearing and not hearing is that I can tell Gateway that if they want to take the lead, they should let us know.
Right. Okay, is that good? Okay, go ahead.
Next is the homeless services. And Ronson, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So usually when I update the steering committee, I pull up my last steering committee presentation. delete everything and put on new stuff. But when I opened it this morning, this came up, I didn't have the heart to delete it. There it is. So this is our last update, was on climate resiliency centers. And it just really kind of hit me this morning. Wanted to share it again. But it just, you know, now there's a renewed sense of urgency that we need to act. So just want to, I'm not going to go into too much, but if my computer allows me, I'm gonna just, yeah, I mean, we were just basically talking about how we've engaged many of your city employees in these various different departments about climate resiliency centers. We define what our vision is for them. It's encompassing everything from transportation to network access, you know, all of the above, cooling centers. And we laid out a vision of where we like to see these potentially placed and how that may wrap in with our local travel network and our fiber network. And then we talked about next steps. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because if you know, if you think the COG should move in a certain direction on this topic, just let us know, me and Jackie, and you know, it's something that is now you know, the one of the most important things right now. So with that, I just want to get into just a couple of really quick updates. Client aid. This is date since inception of our client aid program. Just a brief for those who are new. The COG provides through Measure H funding, security deposits, bus tickets, airplane tickets, car repair payments for people experiencing homelessness to get back on their feet. This is kind of the spread of our client aid cases. And Carson's getting about 4% of the cases. We're doing about 15 cases in CD15. El Segundo 1.3, Gardena 6.4%, Hawthorne 13%, Hermosa Beach 1.7, Inglewood about 15%, Lenox 10%, Lomita 0.5%, Manhattan Beach 1%, RPV 1%, Redondo Beach 21%, Orange 19%. So that's kind of where we've been devoting our time. What you don't see here are all the cases that didn't require money, but we kind of case conferenced and resolved without funding. So
Real quick, Ronson, just a quick question. Is there, you know, I assume it's not coincidental that, you know, Redondo Beach and Torrance both have tiny homes and, you know, I suspect a lot of outreach associated with those. Is it not surprising that they're getting the majority of the funds?
Yeah. So it's not surprising, and that's exactly right. You know, both Redondo Beach and Torrance, they have their own outreach staff, same as Hawthorne. So they're kind of over-indexed, if you will. And then we have a nonprofit we work really closely with in Inglewood and Lenox. And so what we've done since inception of client is identify where our gaps in case management are. And so this year we're going to do a roadshow because we've hired 6 new case managers. And those are in servicing Gardena, Inglewood, Lomita, your city, and some of our unincorporated areas. So we're doing that too. So hopefully those numbers will pick up now that we have new case managers hitting the ground.
Okay.
And then Kathy is here to kind of, I thought it might be a good idea to share one client aid success story and then also one client aid maybe that didn't work out. So Kathy, you want to?
Sure, hold on one second, okay? I actually copied these out so that I could give you a better picture of the case. So one of the cases that I was asked to assist with was a single parent. She had 2 children, ages 12 and 13. She had been evicted from her former apartment, and she was currently being sitting at a shelter at a motel, which Harbor Connect was actually paying for. The initial request went to Toberman to assist her for financial aid when she located a new apartment. She had ample enough income to be able to afford the apartment. She just needed moving expenses of a security deposit in her first month's rent. The client had paid $500 also out of her own money to be able to secure the apartment and hold it while paperwork was going through. So the rent there was going to be $3,200 a month. Believe it or not, her income was high enough to be able to afford it. We kind of proved that out. So the COG wound up assisting with a partial security deposit and a first full month's rent, which allowed her to take her belongings that she had out of storage and then get set up with the housing so that she could move forward in a manner that she wouldn't lose the housing again. So that was one case. I had a second case where I helped. There was a housing navigator from Independent Living Systems, went to the city of Gardena. There was an undocumented family, a husband and wife, and they had a young son. They needed rental assistance for arrears. Their rent was only $1,200 a month, but they fell behind because the husband had an arm injury, wasn't able to work his full hours. And at the same time, the wife fell and she was unable to work. So they needed help with 2 months worth of arrears, which we were finally able to help after the property manager, who was a little bit dicey to work with, agreed to provide the documents that I needed to be able to help them. So we helped them with 2 months. They're back to work. Everything's stable, and they consistently, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to help them was because when I looked at their ledger, their rent was on time on the first every month. There was nothing in arrears except for the 2 months where they were out of work because of that. I do decline to help people these days too. One of those cases was they requested a security deposit of $1,884 to move to a new unit. The client said she had been homeless since 2009. So when I was talking to her, I kind of came out that she was living at the Inside Safe program and had been helped by the people at PATH were had helped her find this unit. She had a Section 8 voucher on top of it. So she was unable to pay for the security deposit. And PATH right now has a policy where they are not helping people who have vouchers with security deposits because they're considering that double dipping of funds. So I did manage to call the program manager over at the Inside Safe shelter where she had been staying. I spoke to him and they took over, and Harbor Interfaith will ultimately release those funds. One other case that I declined, they had an eviction notice for 3 months, which there was a total of the arrears of $4,950. Their current rent was $1,650. When I was diving into the case, I asked, of course, the questions. Her hours had been cut to part-time, so her income was down to only $1,300 a month. So unfortunately, I had to decline helping her at this point and instead had to refer her to Housing Rights Center for information. I advised her of the eviction process and tried to help, make sure that she connects to legal aid and knows what to do when she's served with the court documents. So that's about all I have for the moment. There are more, but that's 4 of this
Thank you,
month.
Kathy. I thought it would be good for you to get some flavor of the kinds of things that she deals with. So, yeah, thank you, Kathy.
Good
You're
job.
welcome.
Bronson, do you have more?
Yeah, and then just some updates on just last slide. We have some advocacy happenings. The first is actually this week, January 15th, with Supervisor Mitchell's office. This is regarding the county motion to streamline LASA and create a new central agency for homelessness. And so we have a couple of our cities that are gonna talk to Mitchell's office on how we can find more funding for SBCCOG and to supplement the mainstream system if they do move forward to streamlining LASA. So that's on the 15th. We have a meeting with the governor's office. One of the things Kathy wants me to bring up is to expedite unemployment disbursements in light of the fires. We've been seeing unemployment disbursements take 4 months or more to disperse. And so we think there's going to be a huge backlog coming up. And so, we want them to get going on that. January 24th is our executive committee meeting. And again, we were looking to advocate there on getting more resources for SBCCOGs. And this is in regards to Measure A. So we'd like to definitely see more direct return of Measure A funds to cities and COGs. If you'd like to participate on any of these advocacy meetings, just let me know and more than welcome to come attend. The homeless count got postponed. There's been no new date set. And the senior resources working group is on the 28th. We're gonna have Torrance present on their senior programs. And we're also gonna survey the group on what they like for us to help accomplish in 2025.
On the January 16th meeting with the governor's office, would that be the appropriate time to bring up the impact associated with AB 1811 and the senior citizens rental subsidies going away?
Yeah, again, for sure, yeah.
I mean, because that's the impact. I mean, all of a sudden, we're gonna have seniors that are gonna lose their subsidies and they're gonna be homeless unless we do something and, ideally do it before they become homeless.
Yeah, that is to Kathy's ears. Yeah, we'll bring that up again.
May I suggest we take this to La Casa as well, because that's the whole thing of La Casa is not to address homelessness, but to stop people from falling into homelessness.
But yeah, because you think about these seniors, right? I mean, if they're living on Social Security or not a lot more than that, right? And all of a sudden, they lose the subsidy, they're out, right? I mean, they just potentially don't have funds to pay rent. And I mean, that's real.
The January 24th meeting that Ronson mentioned, he's getting city staff to come and talk about the kind of collaboration we do here. If you want to actually go or participate on Zoom, we would be delighted. But you should know that we're going to be contacting some of your city staff to have them. It's hard for us to say you should work with the COGs, but we want the city staff to say how well we are doing here in the South Bay, working together and how important it all is.
Well, I guess I just make the observation, if you look at the attendance reports, we know the cities that are, active participants and we know the cities that aren't. Data information's out there, right?
Yes.
Just saying.
Anything else, Ron?
Else?
I have a point of clarification. The motion to create the new government agency was not Supervisor Mitchell's motion. That came out really fast, right? Just to make sure that's
Oh, yeah.
right. That's Horvath's motion.
Horvath's.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got
We'll be talking to your office to kind of, and Azella reached out to get our point of view. So
Cool.
So thank you for your office for that.
Mhm.
Appreciate the opportunity to give feedback.
So let me move on to the legislative briefing. We did postpone it because of the National Day of Mourning, which turned out probably to be even a better idea after all the fires. But what happened is when we did that, I started looking at our schedule. And when in page 17 of your agenda, I wrote a memo. It turns out our dates, the January 9th was postponed. We already have February 28th meet and greet, which is a flyer that you have here before you. And that's not the same format. This is not when we get to ask them a whole bunch of detailed questions. It's a time when the legislators themselves do come. We have April 10th, July 10th, and August 9th. Those are our regular dates. When I looked, we're very, very close to recess for legislators, but we're not. Having them in recess doesn't mean they're going to come because they take a lot of trips during recess. But I looked at the dates, and if you want to reschedule the January 9th, I would suggest we look at Thursday, January 30th, or consider Fridays. Fridays are much better for the legislators. The reason we came off of Friday is that cities aren't open that much on Fridays. But would you come to a legislative briefing if it was Friday? We'd probably get less city staff. We might still get elected. So same thing in April. We're like a day away from recess, or a week away. So April 11th would work, or April 17th, which is the following week. In July, the same thing. We're 1 week away from recess. So if you look at my suggestions, is consider whether you want to be more flexible. Should it always be the second Thursday? Would you go to Fridays? Also, the other thing we've talked about but never really enforced is having a federal meeting and then a state meeting, or maybe one federal meeting and 2 state meetings, something like that. Or just skip, and do you want to skip January? And so these are all on the table, and I'd love some direction.
And just remember, not always do we get a representative. We usually get one of their staff that come in to answer our questions. So I think as a group, we need to pick a date and a time when it's good for us. Not only for them, but at least good for us so that we can get our questions put out there, that we could ask the right things. I think on this last one, we had a lot of questions on this last one that were,
We did, and we asked our legislators to answer them, and I was gonna mention that. Only Assemblywoman McKenna sent her answers, which we do have. I didn't distribute them today. But the others said that they were busy with fires and they couldn't
Yeah.
get to us, so they might get to us.
but it's for the good of the order, so we'll take suggestions, whatever you guys want to do.
Mr. Chair, just an observation, would we be better served, they've got their 35 bills that each one of the legislators are submitting at the state, right? Over the next couple of years, so is there benefits to wait until they've got legislation that they can discuss as opposed to, hey, I'm just thinking about stuff?
Only if we want to tell them what we think they should think about. I mean, now would be to suggest possible legislation.
I mean, it's
Because that was one of the things that Jackie and I talked about when we canceled, is that they have our questions now, so it gives them a little time to mull over and think about their answers. But again, it's like you say, we need to get the information to them so that they can get answers back to us.
Any thoughts about, I mean, do you want to have the January meeting? Do you want to reschedule? I'm suggesting January 30th or 31st. You don't want to do that, we would have the meeting in February.
Yeah.
And we're not getting any guys.
So I think the question is, do you want to have the 29th of January or do you want to push it to February
It'll be the 30th of January.
or 30th of January?
So we're meeting the 28th regardless, right?
No, what's the 28th?
That's the meet and greet.
That was the one.
That's February.
That's this one.
Yeah, that's February, right.
This is
And that's
February.
done in coordination with the South Bay Association of Chambers and Cal Cities. And it's a format where the legislators give 5-minute updates. And then at the end, audience.
Oh, so it's not necessarily a better venue for us to have the Q and A.
Yeah, it's a slightly
Different.
different.
Got it. Okay.
It's kind of the last 2 or 3 years, I think they did it at Dominguez Hills in their little,
Yeah.
like
auditorium,
classroom.
whatever it is, yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then
Well, and the difference is the legislators actually show up
for
for this. meet and
Right.
greet.
They give you a little 5-minute, this is what I've done and what I'm doing. Now, it's not so much questions, but it's more information that they can.
I think if we can get them in January, we'd be fools not to.
yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be so much happening.
Yeah.
Like if we can get ahead of any sort of steering the ship, even,
Planting seeds.
I mean, absolutely.
So
If
January.
there's gonna be, if we think the bill machine in a solid year, cranks out a bunch of stuff to react to, the next 3 months, that bill machine is gonna look like, just a fire hose a proverbial fire hose of legislation. You want to be on the front end of it.
Well, and we might get a few more on Friday, the 31st, as you suggested, because they fly in a lot of times Thursday night.
Well, do you want, so January 30th or 31st?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think any amount of input we can.
Can we pull them to find out what day's better for them?
Okay, so we can do that. January 30th or 31st, is either date acceptable then?
They're good for
Whatever we
everyone,
can get.
either Thursday or Friday.
Okay, we'll get on that
Okay, so we'll make that happen.
and we'll send that out.
Thank you.
You think the priority would be Ben Allen's portion of it? He's gonna be eyeball deep in all this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. And then as far as subsequent dates, I don't know, you want to see how this works and,
Let's see how this works and then we'll push it and see.
okay. Next on the agenda is, I thought I know Bill said he was there. I want to report on contract cities and if you learned anything that you want to share with the group. Nobody at Contact Cities wants to do that?
Go ahead, Barry.
Where do we start? Good God. Let's see, the Attorney General is clueless. Usually isn't, but this time he was, right? The Attorney General, he was
Why?
tone deaf who he was talking to, and frankly, he was kind of insulting. He was saying that, well, if the cities don't comply with the housing rules, we're just gonna have to get tough with them. And that was kind of his starting point. And we're looking at him like, dude, that's not really the problem here. So
But that,
It was in the South San Francisco Bay and not the.
yeah, well, that was consistent with what we heard from the HCD guy as well.
Yeah, the HCD, but at least he was kind of shrugging his shoulders and saying, this is what I think's going on. Am I wrong? Which that was helpful. But some common themes we heard were homelessness is a big deal. And then crime issues. Are they real or imagined? That's a big deal, which it's entertaining because a lot of their stuff is. They're saying different things between them, so they're gonna have to come up with something or not. Maybe they won't. Something I found interesting, there was a lot of talk about CEQA. Before the fire happened, and saying this is, several of them were saying, this is really not working. And then Lowenthal had something, Josh Lowenthal had something interesting. You know, he has a restaurant in, he has two restaurants actually in Long Beach. And he got hit with one of these bogus ADA suits. So, and it's for parking lot issues and he doesn't even own the parking lot. So,
Yeah, he said it was his handicap parking spot and he said it wasn't painted bright enough or
yeah,
something.
the paint wasn't bright enough as seen from aerial imagery. And I don't remember how many suits he said were, or complaints were handed out in his neighborhood, but it was a hefty number. So he's interested in that, which is something this has hit the South Bay pretty hard anyway. There's been a guy going around the beach cities, hitting up small restaurants regarding their outdoor seating. And there's no right to cure, as they call it. So there's an appetite to do that. And he really wants to work with the disabled community to make sure the point of this is not to wipe out ADA. The point is to not wipe out the restaurants and let's help people get it fixed. I don't know, what else were there?
Oh, yeah,
big
so
things?
on Monday, we had a press conference and that was on the
Prop
timely,
36.
timely implementation of Prop 36. We all, again, that was even talking to the legislators, everybody up there is still, what does this want to look like? And I think there's more, questions than answers on some of that. So we'll see where that wants to go. But again, that was just, hey, look, we passed it. The voters overwhelmingly passed this, so we go do something with it.
Anyway, it was interesting and mostly they were pretty positive and concerned about what our issues were as well. So.
Well, and they indicated that the construction of the office building is going to be another 2 years. So in the meantime, we've been bringing the legislators over to the hotel, which works for us. But I mean, it is awfully nice to, be over at the Capitol and that sort of thing. But I thought we got a really good turnout of it.
We did. And, we had a reception on Tuesday night and I don't know how many of them showed up, at least a dozen. And you actually could talk with them one-on-one and have some good conversations. I know I talked with one of them that's not in favor of CEQA reform, but when we really started talking about what we thought were the issues, we agreed. So, I think there's some opportunity there.
Yeah, and then the only other observation, if you look at the last two elections, there was 70 some new legislators. So then the question goes back to, as you start to change the makeup of the legislatures, is there are they going to be a little more moderate and whatnot? I mean, more to be seen on that. But again, you've got a lot of new legislators up there.
Yeah. So there's the opportunity to educate them, to remind them of whence they come.
So Blanca Pacheco was one of the speakers and indicated that she's going to try again approaching the Brown Act issue and being able to have virtual.
Sorry, Brett.
The whole resubmitting the Brown Act issue in terms of being able to hold more virtual meetings.
Oh, okay.
And groups like that.
So the next thing on the agenda would be to discuss any legislation. Sounds like we've talked a little bit as transportation about e-bike issues that we might want to discuss. You've got this AB 1811. There's other things. If you have ideas, if we're gonna do this thing on January 30th or 31st, your questions are gonna be most helpful to make that a meaningful meeting. So please send me anything you think would be just something we want to talk about so that we can be ready to ask them a week in advance and ask them to please have responses.
Yeah, and then the Cal Cities is having policy committee meetings next week up in Sacramento, so we'll see what comes out of those as well.
So you're gonna start getting from Natalie as well, a request for questions. So next item, if you want, we'll go on to the South Bay Fiber Network. Where we are with the South Bay Fiber Network right now is we still do not have the purchase agreement from them. And we're still waiting for it. Because of that, I'm not going to be able to recommend anything at the January board meeting. And we're trying to change the January board meeting so that the Harbor UCLA will come, which was going to come in February. We're going to try and flip it so that because we'll hopefully be ready for the South Bay Fiber Network in February. Wally, did you want to discuss anything about questions that you would like to ask?
Well, I was listening to the board meeting when the principals of the new owners spoke. And there was a lot of like, gosh, you're putting, this is appearing from nowhere and we don't have a chance to think about it. So what we'd like to do is know if you can think of any questions now, we would make sure that the next board, whatever it is in January, February, that we come prepared to answer the questions. I would also say that I thought that was a little bit unfair because I personally have made 3 presentations on digital things, digital equity and stuff. And so it didn't come from nowhere. It actually, a platform that had been built, a foundation, but nevertheless, it is what it is. But if you have any questions now, make sure we get answered for you. This would be, we'd like to hear it because we want to come back better equipped and address your issues.
Good.
Anybody? Okay, so we're gonna be, what's happened is there have been a few meetings with cities. The prospective new owner has been meeting with cities, but until we get the purchase agreement, we're really not gonna do much more meeting. We want to see what the agreement is first. So we're hoping to get that in the next day, and then we'll be able to move forward. Anything else? Jake, did you want anything? And definitely, if you have questions, please. January, you've got down here that we were going to be doing the purchase agreement. We're not. We're going to move it to February. It turns out the Measure M MSP approval was on the agenda. That's being moved to February because we are going to discuss in a little bit the fact that we didn't have a quorum today, the second month. The one thing that will be on the agenda that I'm very excited about, and I hope they can make it. I hope with the fires and everything, they can still make it. As you probably know, I'm on a county commission called the Quality and Productivity Commission, and we fund innovation to county departments. It's a very exciting commission. We funded some really interesting innovations, fire department. And I said to them, how do you let elected officials know that you've done these things? Because it's really pretty exciting. And so when I invited the doctor who's in charge of a lot of these things like paramedics being able to have more facilities in their truck to save lives before they can get people to the hospital. Those are the kinds of things that he can talk about. And I thought it would be very interesting for you to see some of the innovations that they're working on. And so he will be at the meeting. He is confirmed. And I think it'll be a very interesting presentation. February, hopefully we can get Harbor UCLA to January. We might have to move them farther off because we hope to have the purchase agreement, hope to have the Measure M MSP, and we would be doing the mid-year budget then and Measure R. We also have Paige coming to maybe discuss the goals and metrics for the executive committee. Let's see, what else? In July, Rodney, you asked something about our housing trust. We had a kickoff meeting, and I'll just go there for a little bit. We had a kickoff meeting with the representatives of the consultant we've hired to do the housing trust. They're planning to come to the board in June or July to talk about what they're learning and next steps. Okay. That's going to be like a year's worth of study. And what they are going to be doing is they'll be July and they'll probably come again in September, October. They have a schedule.
Okay.
on places, I have listed for people to invite. I eliminated all the ones we had for last year, and now we've got Nathan Hockman down there. But I was wondering also if you wanted to invite, or if you thought it would be timely to invite Ryan Johnson, who was the person that John mentioned as the executive director, La Casa. So I thought I would put him down as someone who might be a good speaker at the board meeting.
Yeah, if he's interested.
Okay, so the next is invoices. Which is very important.
You want to do your personal service agreement item?
I was gonna do that after invoice.
Okay.
Okay, approve.
Second.
There was,
That was who, Bernadette and,
okay, we got a motion on the floor.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Thank you.
okay, so the next item is a handout that you have before you that we've added to the agenda, and it has to do with, I'll find it here. It's the one that has a cover page that just says handouts. Turns out, as you all know, that we've had we had said we were going to have a regional planner. Oh, okay. We didn't have a regional planner.
I gotta go to work.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
I can't spend all day here.
And we had Jonathan Bell, who was our regional planner. He helped sit on the committee with community development directors, and he left the COG. And since then, we've been handling city issues with that we've gotten, and somebody's asked us a question, we've been able to do it, but we really haven't had a regional planner on our staff. Tried to find people, it's hard to recruit. And so we decided we'd do the same thing that we did with Jonathan, go to a private sector firm, get somebody that's really good, and then work with them. We've worked with Shannon Heffernan, and you have down here her resume and my memo. We've worked with Shannon Heffernan, who works at Dudek, for several different engagements. And Wally, who is not an easy person to impress.
We can't hear you.
Oh, did you hear any of it? Hello,
No,
can you hear?
no, not maybe the last like minute or so, maybe two.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of grants and we already have them. We have a great staff of people who can work on these grants, but we need a manager. We need a project manager who can direct all of them. Figure out how we're going to do them all with the consultants, working with the consultants and working with our staff. And Shannon has expressed an interest in being able to do this. Talk to her bosses at Dudek. They're interested in helping us out. And so we would like to have a short-term contract. Reason we want to do this is we want to make sure it really works. And they've also given us a price for the short-term contract, which is a little bit higher than we would like. So what we're saying right now is that we would like to have a contract with Dudek for Ms. Heffernan's services for 120 hours a quarter, which is like 40 hours a month. It would be $24,000 a quarter, not to exceed $96,000 in a year. If we decide that after 3 months or whatever, it's actually working, we have already told Dudek, we are going to go back to them and ask for more hours for the same amount of money. We want them to lower their rates. And we think, I think the staff is going to be very excited about this, have more direction and more time to really get these grants done the way we want them to be done. So we're recommending to you this contract. We don't have it yet, but we'll have it by the board meeting. So what we're asking you to do is approve the concept of getting us to that point.
And just quick question. So in the meantime, is the recruitment on hold or?
Right.
Okay.
There's no recruitment now because we would be doing this. Yeah.
Say more like the recruitment died.
Yeah, the recruitment died from lack of interest.
Yeah.
We couldn't find good candidates and we're getting to a place now where we're really needing like a different level of experience. And so the timing is like perfect. And this person brings that technical experience as well as you can see, she has a breadth of responsibility that she's had over the years.
She has a track record.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I worked with her also on the climate action plan work and she was very good.
We'll entertain a motion.
Sorry, one more question. So are we retaining her individually or?
No, she is working for Dudek and we're retaining the firm for her services.
So that would come with more expertise if needed.
Well, she could be, she can call on them, yes.
On them.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion, a second?
Second, was there a second?
Second.
Hermosa.
Ray, you were second.
Yes, sir.
Any opposition? Any abstention?
Wally, did you want to say anything? No, I thought you had your hand up.
No, we've already voted, so whatever I would say would matter. I was gonna say, don't do it.
Liar.
Just kidding.
Liar.
Well, you gave a thumbs up and Kim gave a thumbs up, so.
Yes.
What else do we need?
That's what we did.
Right?
Okay. The other issue that I added had to do with the fire response and the fact that it's going to affect, we all know it's going to affect county sales tax. It's going to, and property tax. We're all going to feel what's happening with the fires. And as I said, a little disingenuous to blame bureaucracy when there aren't enough people to do the work. And so I don't know if you wanted to, if you had thought over the weekend about any kind of responses. There's a couple of things that I thought of, which is, and Wally suggested this, that if you wanted, we could, and maybe you should explain going to REAP and changing our, we're saying to change our REAP project.
You'll say that.
Yes, did you want to explain that? If SCAG would let us do this.
Yeah, they're not going to, and HCD isn't going to, but the state, as you know, is build, baby, build, as opposed to the complement of drill, baby, drill, which we find from the federal government. And so the really question is that there's this REAP, Regional Early Action Program, that HCD is funding, and they put almost $1 billion into it. And it's about helping us find new ways to develop housing, as if the rain a hammer isn't enough, you've got a target, but now it's like, okay, there's more money. So I think one of the takeaways from all of this fire, with all the finger pointing going on, is that best do this, and there's something to that, and the fire department goes on the front of yada yada. The bottom line here is that changes upon us, and the stuff that's built, whether it's infrastructure or whether it's real structures, were built to take on a different environment, a different weather environment than what we've got today. And I've got several, just if you don't believe me, and I know you do, but climate change is killing buildings in slow motion. Underground climate change could crack foundations and warp subway tracks. Climate change threatening California piers. So the fact is, what happened here has to do with, we were overwhelmed. The system was overwhelmed. We could not cope with the fire started, but then the winds took up, and it started because there's something called a hydrology cycle, in which you have atmospheric rivers that come in and pour rain on stuff, and all this growth comes up, and then it goes dry for a year, and it becomes tinder, and it catches fire. So really what you want to do is stop burning oil. That's the first thing you have to do. And then you can work on this other stuff about, well, what can we do about the water delivery systems? Because there's all this stuff about the suburbs are built for water delivery. There's watering lawns and taking care of a house fire, not 30 miles of fire. So that stuff is part of it, the clearage of the underbrush and so forth. So the first thing is, and that's where it gets back to fiber network, let us use it to cut down on consuming oil, because that's going to stop the fires. But secondly, if we're going to have all this housing, can we make sure that it's being built and positioned in a way that isn't going to be vulnerable to these kinds of things? Whether any, And you know what? Mudslides are gonna follow this. We know this. It happens all the time. So now that there's no plants holding the ground, it's gonna slide as soon as the rains finally do come. So I'm saying two things. I'm saying, let's go back to ACD through SCAG and say, don't have to encourage us to do more stuff like commercial redevelopment. We get it. We're already working on it. Why can't we use that money to take a look at ADUs? Jackie has an example of somebody, an ADU person that's the water hookup is compromising I don't know, whatever this.
So it's had to do with I think I meant to mention, this has to do with the law that you can sell an ADU as a separate unit. And yet this person who I know who's on a water board said that the ADUs usually use the same supply of water as the main house. So when you sell the ADU off separately, what happens to the water supply, for example?
So anyway, I'd like to use our REAP money to go take a look at what we're building and its security from a standpoint of fires, floods, mudslides. Because what are we building and is it vulnerable and couldn't we do a better job of protecting it? That's sort of what I'd like to use the money for. They're not going to go for it, but it is an interesting sort of pushback. We're on record as saying that this is important to us. So when it happens here, we can say, well, we told you so. There's a little bit of satisfaction in that.
I'm optimistic. They might.
The other thing is that I wanted to go to the city and county because Mayor Bass got up and said, Jackie already mentioned, let's cut the red tape. And Newsom, let's override CEQA. Well, what you want to do is fund local planning so that you can do the speed without changing the regulations. And they've started, the whole business of the Newsom administration is to starve the local planning departments from having enough staff to do it. If you're worried that things are not moving fast enough, then hire more people to do it. Our staff, our people are not lazy. They just have overwhelmed by stuff to do. So let's fund them right. And let's make the regulations not override what's there, but make it sensible so we can protect ourselves. This fire could have been handled differently once we stop burning oil. So those two things. But we want to go to the city and county and say, don't tell us you're going to override CEQA. Don't tell us you're going to cut red tape. Tell us you're going to help. And you're 40% of the South Bay. What you guys do could affect what happens to here. What if your fires come over here and ruin our lives? I mean, so that's just a way of, it's a teachable moment and I'd like to take it. That's all.
So one of the things that I was thinking of as you were talking, Bill, is that I don't know if any of you are on the League of California Cities policy committees, but I would imagine they're going to be discussing this next week too. And maybe some of these issues, I don't know if any of you go to those. Yeah, maybe you can be discussing some of this there, that cities ought to be standing up for the fact that cities are going to be needing more resources to do these things. And should be coming from the league as well. The other, so Wally is asking, I guess, how do you want to make a response? One of the other things that I wanted to mention was the General Assembly. And do you want us to have, the General Assembly is 30 years of accomplishments and 30 years in the future. And so I thought maybe we should get more 30 years in the future should look at some of what we've just learned about what we better do to prepare for the future. So we might be sort of morphing the program a little bit like that, if that's okay with everybody.
That's good information that we need.
Yeah. So any thoughts that anybody else had? I just thought it might be good for people to, but do you see a role for the COG? It is, what would Supervisor Mitchell like to know from us, for example? And, we're the people on the ground. And Wally mentioned that there's areas that will flood here. So, so we're going to have other impacts that are going to come on differently here. Any thoughts? You guys are very quiet today.
I can't speak specifically to that question yet because everything's been so overwhelming right now, but definitely we'll plug in the COG where I can and have the conversations.
Yeah. I mean, this can't just be a city of Los Angeles taking care of.
Definitely.
It's got to be, all of us are affected by it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about infrastructure, right? I mean, whatever funding we have and what funding we'll get, kind of goes back to, it's all going to be influenced to a great degree by what we need to do as a result of the fires, right? And, we're all going to be impacted in some fashion, even if we didn't have fires in our neighborhoods. Right, so that kind of goes back to what's the next 30 years look like? I don't know. I mean, my crystal ball is not that great, but it's going to be different than it was, beginning of January, right?
The other thing is that I saw one letter to the editor in the LA Times about the Olympics. I heard yesterday that Newsom said it would take 9 months to a year to clear the debris. So if it takes 9 months to a year to clear the debris, that's 2026, 2027.
You got World Cup.
You got World Cup, yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
so, are any of the events,
Yes.
should we be transferring them to another city?
I don't think there's anything in those areas.
There's not anything in those areas, but it's community, it's the resources, it's the county's resources.
Where people staying, where other.
I mean, all of a sudden, you just, if we had a housing problem before,
Have enough room.
we really are gonna have a housing problem now,
Sure.
right?
But you're talking 4 years away.
2, World Cup.
Okay, World Cup, I ignore soccer because I'm an American.
Oh, no. You might ignore some.
That's not a city opinion, by the way. I know.
Scratch that from the record.
You're so concentrated. I mean, I'm just being silly, but the World Cup is not near so concentrated as the Olympics. The World Cup is scattered all the way up to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Have 2 weeks.
So the impact, it's significant, but as if I recall, it's like 2 Super Bowls going on at a time. And
Bigger than a Super Bowl.
but that's why I said like 2 Super Bowls. But the Olympics is like 5 to 7 Super Bowls going on a day for the whole duration.
Yeah, but what Jackie's saying is the impact of this
Yes.
is you just wiped out a substantial portion of very, very big spenders.
Yeah.
And Metro depends on retail sales tax. Cities and counties,
Definitely.
Los Angeles, they're gonna go, if not broke, they're gonna be really in bad shape when this comes down. I mean, it's not, everybody's talking about the billions of stuff to rebuild it. It's the loss of jobs, the gardeners, the housekeepers and so forth. This is impact, the economy of the county is really getting hammered over this. So the question Jackie's asking is, gosh, do we want to throw a big party now that we don't have any money to throw it? And we know, we've met with Metro people. We know they don't have any plans. And they're talking about, for safety concerns, there has to be no parking at the venues. So that means, how are they going to get there? Well, they're going to get there through Metro. But Metro, first off, doesn't have the money to do it even today. And when they start losing sales tax starting now, we're asking the question is, how are you going to do this?
Zane?
Well, also to that point, how about, you think these people are gonna ask for their property assessments to be reassessed?
Oh, yeah.
And how drop?
And that's on improvements. There's no more improvements.
Right, there's no more improvements, right? So that's a huge reduction in.
Yeah, it's gonna take, it's Paradise, I saw that Paradise, 2018, I think.
Yeah.
Is still building housing and to recruit.
They're saying that some of these houses will take 10 years to rebuild with all the cleanup and everything else.
To be perfectly honest, in my mind, the Olympics is a question of our priorities and where we want to put our priorities. And I think there's a conundrum. I was watching all these shows, and just to get political for a minute, I almost think that we need to say we want the Olympics to get Trump to give us money. Because President Trump, they don't know if he's going to give money. So maybe that's the chip. But if it isn't the chip, then is that where our priorities should be? I don't know. I just throw that out on the table.
Well, given that the infrastructure is overwhelmed by the heat,
And then.
what would it take, for example, to go back to every suburban neighborhood and retrofit its water delivery system?
Exactly.
What would it take to make Metro really a vital thing where you've got a 50% mode share? How many trillions of dollars would that take?
Trillions.
Yeah.
So here we are with facing a budget problem and all these parties we're trying to throw. And what are the priorities that when the smoke clears, literally, when the smoke clears, what are we going to do? And Bill, you said you don't look ahead 30 years. That's my job. I look ahead 30 years. And I tell you what, it's not pretty. There will be portions of this globe that will be uninhabitable in 30 years. And where are those people going to go? So Phoenix is one of them, by the way.
Okay.
You can't have 60 days of 110 degrees heat where you burn your hands on the handles to your door and think that anyone's going to want to live there. So just saying, we got some real priorities to make. So I'm not through.
Yeah.
Kidding, I'm joking. Go ahead.
Wait,
Time out.
time out. Okay. So please, let's all think about, what role we have to play, because we do have a role to play in this. Brief 2, going on to information items. Wally just mentioned, we only right now have 2 cities that, Carson and Torrance.
Somebody on the hill.
I don't remember. Rolling Hills Estates?
Doesn't matter.
I don't remember.
Number 3 doesn't matter.
On commercial redevelopment, it probably would be Rolling Hills Estates. And then Hawthorne and Lawndale are deciding whether they're going to participate. We need to get the cities finalized because we can't get started until we do, unless we write to SCAG and say they ought to change priorities anyway. Our micro-mobility hub project, the COG is working on that. And then the Housing Trust, as I said, we had a kickoff meeting. What I need today is to discuss with you the fact that our Housing Trust consultant wants to have a steering committee, which we're going to call the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, which would be a new committee that we would create for the consultant on the Housing Committee. And they're talking about 4 meetings. They already have them planned pretty much. They'd be virtual meetings, an hour and a half. What we need is a few city managers. I'm going to be talking to the city managers. We need a few electeds. We need big cities and small cities. We need a few community development directors. We probably will be asking for a developer and a lender. And these, I was going to show my notes on the screen and I didn't do that. I have a note to myself to show you what I'm talking about. You don't have that, do you, David? The consultant's report. Anyway, let's see if I can.
Is the memo that you can share?
Yeah. Anyway, if you're interested, we need volunteers now. We need by February 1st to have volunteers for the Strategic Planning Advisory Committee to work on the Housing Trust. Is anybody here right now interested in that? Bill?
Contact my city manager. Tell them I'm encouraging.
There's nothing else to do.
Okay. So right now, we're going to need more people, obviously, and I'm sorry, you don't have that, do you?
Yeah, be thoughtful about this because this project is something that's we've been working on for a long time.
While Kim is talking, I will try to get it. So that
I think it's important for us to at least consider participating so that we get the right people making the right decisions for us. So, yeah, be mindful and just consider. Again, it's only what, 4 meetings?
4 meetings.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, you go ahead. And David.
So, you've seen me report out at the end of last year. We did a great job of working with the energy efficiency, water reduction, waste reduction work, working with the school districts and also the cities. But of course, now we've been talking about a whole new way to do business. And one of the things that we do have relationship with is our partners, right? With water agencies, waste agencies, and as well as energy. And so what we'll be doing over the next probably few months is working with those agencies. Even though it's not affecting this area directly, still what is happening to the groundwater, right? Because we know that the city of Pasadena couldn't use their water because of the drops from the air, right? Is that getting into the full system? How do we make sure we communicate with people to know, if there's not a problem, what's going to happen to all that waste? Is that going to affect your city's ability to send stuff, to sanitation districts, right? There's going to be a lot of construction. We have a lot of laws with construction, right? And how much construction material can go into landfills. So we'll be working with the partners on all of that information, probably more like next month when they're not responding to everything that's going on. And I'll be able to report out to you what I hear back from them as well. We also we're working on a grant for adaptation. We're trying to update the vulnerability assessments for all of our cities. And that looks at the most recent data and what the scientific projections are and how that's going to affect your communities. And it's through a Caltrans, we have one of the team is working on it, Sean. And if we get that money, then we'll be working with your city staff and then presenting those findings to you. It's really looking at existing data, updated data, and taking it down to the city level and saying to you, if we have, you know, sea level rise and a storm and wind, what does that look like? Are you seeing coastal flooding, right? It's really looking at multiple disasters happening sort of at the same time like we had right now, right? We had wind, dry conditions, fire, all at the same time, right? So that will, if we can do that, if we get that money, we'll be doing that over like the next year. So that'll be good information that the cities can use. And of course, to Ronson's point, we'll be always looking for opportunities to try to identify ways that we can bring resources for like resiliency centers. And what does resiliency look like? Even when people are starting to replant, what does that do to biodiversity? Like there's a lot of things that are going on. And our team will be looking at those things and bringing that information to you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, not Ronson, David put this up on the board. David, can you scroll to the top?
Or maybe make it bigger, yeah.
So, so this is the committee, yeah, okay. So we met, all these people met, this is the timeline, but let's go to the committee, you're right. Okay, these are the dates. So we need to, this is the committee I mentioned, and we're talking about also inviting Mike Jenkins, our attorney, as needed. I'll talk to the city managers about that. But the first meeting, which would be in March, which is why we need to know in February, would be sort of like a housing trust 101. They'd go through the scope of work in the timeline, the agenda for the 3 additional meetings, and then a summary of the grant and some of the other issues that they're finding. Number 2 would be, this is not going to be helpful because it would be in May. Number 3 would be in June. And then they'd go to the housing task force, homeless task force. They'd go to community development directors. Then July would be another meeting. I want you to scroll down because I want you to get to so the tasks are developer, they would talk about what they're learning in developer engagement. Go ahead, existing housing trust funds and what they're learning from those. The research on community-based organization, that wouldn't come to us, but targeted engagement. And what we're saying is we don't want to go into your cities and do targeted engagement until we know that we all want to have a trust, because we don't want to rile people up for no reason. But a housing needs, then an analysis of the proposed housing developments that would be happening in the South Bay, a staffing plan, how are we going to make this thing work? How are we going to fund it? And the opportunities to fund housing, and then implementation plans, and then program recommendations, and finally, a strategic plan, meetings, setting up agendas to meet with all of the cities. And then the very last, at the very end, will be a draft staff report, a draft resolution, and a PowerPoint to go for your cities to decide if they want to join the trust. So this is what we need the committee to be the guidance for. And like I said, 4 meetings, an hour and a half. So if you're interested, please. And Bill, I've got you down.
Do you have developer and the lenders identified, or you're still looking for that too?
I think we're still looking for it. Ronson, I think, has some ideas, but if you have developers or lenders, definitely, we want to be able to choose, not just pick who we know. So give us your ideas, please. Okay. So this is going to be a big and important project this year. Okay, so Ronson, I think you mentioned senior services already. So we just lost Jake. So I was going to talk about, we did this a little bit at the last meeting. So one of the things we want to form.
You want the slides? Transportation.
Oh, yeah, might as well use the slides from transportation. It's good that we're getting done early because, as I said, we really would like as many of you as possible to walk over to the boardroom. And so hopefully we can get done early. I said that.
Now everybody's got
everything. The General Assembly, we're it's in progress. We still do not have a keynote speaker, but we have a lot of invitations out and possibilities. So we're working on that. Any more on the General Assembly we need to report?
I don't think so.
No, we're going to be sending out save the dates. The PR stuff is all getting ready right now.
And I'm just thinking of, because of the fires and whatnot, there may be a potential, speaker in line with that as well.
Right.
Who knows what that wants to look like yet, but that's a.
If you have any ideas or hear people that you think are really good, let me know.
I was gonna say, you're reaching out to past, I don't know if.
Oh, yeah, I should tell you, we're reaching out to all the past chairs. And for example, I think I have emails for them, but I got Susie Devers' email back, so I need hers. I need, nobody's here from Torrance. A couple, like 3 past chairs that are still alive that I cannot find. But we've asked them to come, and we're also going to be asking Colleen to do a video with them. So that's happening right now. So if you have a past chair, your city, please let them know we're trying to get in touch with them. This was what was at the Transportation Committee. I'll run through it really fast. I don't know where Jake is. Okay, updates. Lawndale the council has just voted to do a Measure M application. We're very excited about that, to bring the improvements to Lawndale. Redondo Beach, El Segundo, Carson, and Lomita already have. Redondo Beach is ready for implementation. They've got their Measure M. The routes are being finalized. We're trying to get it to council so we can move forward. El Segundo, Chris was great today. There's certain sections of El Segundo that are problematic as far as connecting up, and he's trying to help us with that. Carson there's a gap closure. Carson itself has gaps within Carson, but also gaps to get all the way down to San Pedro. And we have the Caltrans grant to do that. And Lomita has gotten money for improvements that we can start in Lomita. The big thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is the city working group. One of the things we're running into is that the cities don't have the staff. For example, we can't get it to Redondo Council because Redondo's short on staff. In Lawndale's short on staff. Everybody's short on staff. So we were wondering, what we can do is we can publicize for a technical consultant, because we're not technical here. We can help set up meetings. We can't do that. We can try to get a bench of technical consultants that would be qualified to work on the local travel network, but we don't want to do that if cities aren't going to use it. So we need to meet with cities and this is really public works, to find out is how can we provide the technical services that they need to offload the staff so that we can move this forward faster. And so we're thinking of setting up a working group with at least these cities to talk about what their needs are right now, so that we can then move forward. Jake, I'm doing your job. I'm just.
It's on that slide right there.
Yeah, I think.
You're doing a great job, Jackie.
So if your city is one of these cities, we really need your public works director to say how we can be the most helpful in getting them the technical expertise they need. What's the next slide? This is the Carson to the Sea. I mentioned that we have a Caltrans grant to try to get us through Carson and all the way to San Pedro. Next slide. Jake is working on e-bike safety.
Safe Streets program that we do have.
And we're waiting to get a notice to proceed. We got the yes very fast because we think that this administration wanted to get it out. And next.
And this one is the one that we're in the process of preparing the application for. It'll focus on the parking components of local travel.
And Chris Pimentel, you were here, Wally. Chris Pimentel said something very interesting. He was talking about the different ways you park micromobility, like an e-bike has a different way you got to protect the battery as well as the bike. So he said, if you just hook up the front tire of a e-bike, you'll have a front tire of an e-bike. That's all you'll have. So there has to be a different way of parking it. And so this study is going to talk about, you just can't put these things out there at the destinations. They have to have all of these different ways of securing them so that people will actually use them. And we think this is going to be a really important study.
Well, that's no different than a regular bicycle.
What?
That's no different than locking up a regular bicycle. You lock it to the frame, not the wheel, because otherwise.
He said the battery.
The battery is obviously a separate component,
Yeah,
but they sell locks and other mechanisms for that. So I'm just not sure why.
Yeah, but the problem with micromobility is it's 4 different form factors. There's 1-wheel, 2-wheel, 3-wheel, and 4-wheel devices.
Right.
When you go into a normal parking lot, it's either a compact space or a regular space.
Right.
When you start talking about parking, that's why we're doing the study. You start talking about destination parking for micro devices, you have to deal with the 4 different form factors. Not so easy. And they all have to be safe and well lit.
And the other thing was the ADA issue with golf carts is city attorneys in particular, at least in El Segundo, took the very cautious approach that you have to have a certain amount of space where it ultimately takes up
the exact same amount of space as their full-size car parking.
Right.
And
Where the South Beaches, our beach cities are the homes of golf carts and.
right, and so
Just like everybody else does.
getting some sort of ADA analysis that we still in keeping with the ADA, these are a different class of vehicles that probably have a different set of ADA requirements to them, but there's nothing's out there right now for those vehicles, so cities defer to.
But the registration and the licensing is the same as a vehicle.
Correct, but so what happened was in El Segundo, they wanted to put in golf cart parking in front of City Hall.
Oh.
And the city attorney said that you have to have this amount of space around the vehicle.
Oh.
And it ultimately was the size of a regular, so you're
Right.
potentially making your regular car drivers upset that we're not gaining additional parking, you're just taking away a regular parking spot for a smaller vehicle. So in theory, getting some sort of legal guidance that you can put 2 golf carts in the same footprint as a regular size vehicle or something like that. And so it just doesn't seem like there's any legal sort of cover that cities can point to and say, we can actually do it with these dimensions instead of these dimensions.
You would think the desert cities would have already settled this issue.
Yes,
You know,
maybe we should look at that. That's a good point.
Well, in Lincoln and up north and Palm
Catalina.
had street legal golf.
Yeah, in Catalina
Yeah,
too.
I think we need to take a tour.
Okay, before we.
I also want to thank Barry because thanks to you, you introduced me again to Placer AI.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a back and forth with them and they made a deal with us where they sell their service for $100,000. They're going to sell it to us for $30,000.
Ooh.
So that we can do this study with that because they have such rich data, including psychographics sitting on their end. And that 70,000 that they're not charging us, Caltrans is going to let us use as local match. So
That's
thanks,
awesome.
Barry.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, I want to see
Yeah,
that.
it's very, very exciting. Thank you for mentioning that, Wally. And if we set to Placer, if we like it, maybe we'll actually buy their services, but at least now we have grant funding to try it out.
Yeah.
I want to go next, if we can, Mr. Chair, to
Yes.
Colleen. I asked Colleen to do a year-end media and digital report, and I think she did a really great job. And I want to give her the time to show it, and then after that, we have just announcements, and I'd like to, and in the office space, obviously, we have to talk to you about the office space. But Colleen, do you want to do yours now?
Sure. So yes, I wanted to recap our 2024 results for communications and marketing and start with looking at the channels that we use here. They include social media, print media, email marketing, website, media coverage, city communications, and advertising. So all of those types of media fall under 3 different buckets. So I wanted to go into the definitions for those. You have owned media, which is content that the company creates and has complete control over. And that includes print publications, websites, blogs, email marketing, and social media. The second one is earned media, and that's a media strategy for exposure that is not paid for and is not in the business's control. So you can't force this media strategy, although methods can be used to curate this attention. So this includes news media editorial placements, videos that go viral, product reviews, and shares of content across social media. And then finally, we have paid media, which is not something that we use a lot of here because we are government. We don't do a lot of advertising, but that is marketing that's paid for. And that includes print and digital advertising, and also with social media, it includes boosted posts. So you can boost a post, you post something on Facebook and then boost that for a nominal fee of say $10 to $100. And you can significantly increase your reach that way. So we've been doing some of that. Some metrics that I wanted to explain for owned media, social media would be reach and impressions. We track both of these metrics, and reach is the number of users who saw your post, ad, or piece of content, and it counts each user only one time, regardless of how many times they viewed the content. Whereas impressions is total views, so that's the number of times your post or ad was shown to users and how many times it appeared on their screen. And this metric includes multiple views by the same user. So say if a person sees your post 3 times, that's counted as 3 impressions. So which of these is best to measure? It kind of just depends on your goals. So with reach, it indicates how many unique potential customers you're exposing your brand or message to. It can be valuable for market penetration, showing how effective the message is in being spread across your target market, and campaign efficiency. You can get high reach with low frequency if you have low budget. And then when you look at impressions, that promotes message reinforcement. So that's repeated exposure, and it helps solidify brand message in an audience's mind. Also promotes brand recall. So more impressions typically lead to better brand recognition and recall. And also conversion. Sometimes it can take multiple impressions before a user takes action. So another metric that we also study is engagement. To me, that's the most important metric because that shows how your users are interacting with your brand's social media content. And that includes reactions such as likes, hearts, and other emojis, comments, link clicks, video plays, and shares. So when you look at our results at a glance for social media for 2024, we have Facebook. We have 2 channels on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, aka Twitter. We have 2 Twitter channels, the COG channel, and also our SBCCOG, which promotes strictly our environmental programs. And so our total followership for all these channels is over 3,000. And when I started here in the COG in September of 2020, that was 1,700. So it's grown by 96%. It's been slow growing, but it's slow but steady. And so this past year we had 534 new followers. We did 1,515 posts. Those impressions generated were 125,177, and our post reach was over 74,000. When you look at our engagement for 2024, we had over 6,000 engagements. And so when you look at the breakdown for that, our comments were 329, clicks 370, shares 526, reactions over 2,000, and video views almost 3,000. So we like to study where we're landing with our types of content. And so each month I've been looking at the top 3 posts for each platform and also the bottom 3 posts. And I've been presenting that in the monthly media report. But when you look at our Instagram by impressions, our top post for the year was the Eco Gardener workshop for WRD and environmental landscaping is very popular right now. So that also when we tag partners, that generates more impressions. So we got over 1,500 impressions for that one. And our number 2 was our South Bay Energy and Climate Recognitions Awards Gold post, for which we tagged all of our cities. And that, of course, generated a lot of impressions as well. And the third one was this electric XP foldable bike. So when we tag the manufacturer, that generated more impressions for that one. When you look at the engagement, though, it's very different. And as you can see, a commonality of all of these posts that they're all videos. Video is a great way to generate engagement on Instagram. So when you look at the top post for the year, that was our volunteer, Rick Ramirez. He visited our office recently and dressed up as Santa, and he played some tunes on his guitar.
Hysterical.
And it was really funny, and it actually turned out to be a very popular video on Instagram, generating 124 engagements.
I think that's sad, really.
That's sad, but that's the way it is. Yeah. And our second highest engaged post was our Civic Spark Ansai did a bike to work week video, where she talked about she takes her bike in
to work every day here in Torrance. So that was another fun one. And then we did a national Clean Energy Month post. Eleanor Murphy did that, and talking about what our employees were doing to promote clean energy. So another video that generated good engagement. So again, the takeaway there is video gets engagement with Instagram. Facebook, our impressions, the commonality of all three top posts are that they were boosted and that they were events. So it doesn't really reflect sort of organic top posts, but it shows that boosted posts really do generate a lot of impressions. So our top impressions for Facebook was our General Assembly event post, and then followed by our West Basin Rain Barrel program. And then also we did our mobility showcase in El Segundo in conjunction with the El Segundo Art Walk. So when you look at engagement, it's a little bit different. Our General Assembly also got very good engagement. But secondly was Project Moonstone ribbon cutting in Redondo Beach, and homeless content is very popular when it comes to engagement. People are very interested in what we're doing to solve homelessness. And the third one was an interview with e-bike Sense founder, Megan Lamb, and e-bikes are hot on people's minds now, e-bike safety. So that also generated a lot of interest. You look at our LinkedIn is actually our most engaged platform, which is really interesting. But so the engagement and the impressions for LinkedIn were about the same. So in terms of top, and then so our top engaged posts and impressions posts are SoCal gas tour of the H2 innovation experience that we had a few months back. And then we had a post about our employee that was leaving, and that generated a lot of interest. And then we did one on Cedric Hicks, when he was stepping down, just to thank him, and that also got a lot of engagement. When you look at X, it seems to be more informational. It's a great way to spread information. So you can kind of see by what posts generated impressions and engagements on this platform. It's very different than the others. So you do really have to tailor strategically your posts for various platforms. And it's good to take a look at this information so we know what is resonating. So the top post impressions wise for X was the Caltrans District 7 call for public comment, followed by a campaign that we did a while back on why low speed vehicles promote local travel network. And those generated a lot of impressions. And then you can see with our top engaged post for X, that was again Ann Side's photo, which generated 43 engagements. So again, a takeaway there is if you want to get engagements, video is the way to go. So once again, recapping our key takeaways for social media, when it comes to engagement, video is king, followed by photos, and boosted posts should be considered. It's just a nominal investment to get more engagement. Another type of owned media that we participate in is our print publication, South Bay Watch, which we do on a quarterly basis. And we distribute 3,000 copies at 100 community events per year. And it's really hard to sort of see what's landing with some of the content because we put it out there, we don't get a lot of feedback. So that's just the nature of print media. But the way we can kind of gauge what's resonating is by looking at our email marketing for the publication. And we are getting a lot of opens. Our open rate is good. And also our click rate. So if you look at the spring issue, for example, which is our highest performing email that was post General Assembly, we had over 6,000 opens and 746 clicks. So when you look at the industry standard, the open rate is about 15 to 25% with a click rate of 2.5%, according to Campaign Monitor. So our top performing stories for the year were also from that particular issue, and happened to be about the top one happened to be about Gardina's robust senior programs, which got 595 clicks, followed by e-bike classifications. And then that was followed by our sustainability and action photo contest.
Yeah, it's riding dancing.
Yep.
I have to go fast.
Yeah.
Selling.
What's that?
Fast. I have to go faster.
Okay, so we also do other email marketing. We do our partner emails, our monthly SBSC newsletter, our quarterly green business newsletter, and what we started this year was Turtle Talk to promote low speed vehicle travel. So when you look all together at our email marketing efforts, we did a total of 100 emails, over 1 million sends, total from our list, and open rate was 481,594 with clicks over 20,000. So we're doing pretty well when you compare that to the open rate average. Looking at our website, which is another form of owned media, we had, according to Google Analytics, 141,000 total views. And you can take a look at our top 10 viewed pages, which is of course the homepage, General Assembly, our environmental pages, and officers and staff, and newsletter was top 5. We also do media outreach, which is a type of earned media. So we had a total number of articles of 20, and that's just confirmed articles. We did have a lot of articles probably generated with our Functional Zero event, but we weren't able to really track some of those because we don't have a monitoring service. But when you look at what the metrics that we look at to gauge how we're performing in this, the industry has gone toward these 4, which is quality, relevancy, mind share, and sentiment. So what do those mean? Quality means how good is the publication and how good the publication is in this market and for this particular product, which would be our agency. It might be different from Starbucks. They might think of the Easy Reader as a very low tier publication on their scale, but we think of that as a top tier because we are so hyper local. And when you look at relevancy to our brand, are we driving home the message that we're advocating for? And mind share, how much of the article is about us? You look at sentiment, is the tone positive or negative? So you can see we're performing high in all of these 4 areas with our earned media. And of course, our big media home run that scored well on all 4 of these categories was our Los Angeles Times placement, front page placement for the Functional Zero celebration. And we worked a few months on that article, had several interviews and also ride-alongs. And then we had all these other media that showed up at the Functional Zero event. So that made it a super home run and lots of interviews as well. And another type of earned media we do is we work with our city communicators. We've cultivated a list of the internal in-house communicators, and we send them content to share on their channels, whether that be the e-newsletters and social media. And through those specific requests, we have had 14 e-newsletter shares and 13 social media shares. And then finally, we do a little bit of paid advertising for the General Assembly, and that's in the form of in-kind sponsorships. So we had our Southern California News Group. We did an investment of just a little bit over $2,000 for a benefactor level of $4,000. And then also Easy Reader was sort of an even their investment, our investment, and that generated a couple 100,000 potential impressions. And then, so of course, we had good results from that with 400 attendees. So that's a recap of our year efforts for marketing and communications. Thank you.
The media talk to Zane, he is the master of.
Let's tweet at Trump and Elon Musk and tell them,
Them to read.
with them, ask them about their micromobility solutions and,
That's a good idea.
it'd be good, yeah.
That's what it is, slow speed. It is. Okay, now we have a very important item on the agenda, which is the office. We have two, I'm gonna let David talk to you, but you have before you the office plans. We have so many decisions to make in a very short period of time. So David, do you want to?
Sure. Our lease is up in June. So we've been looking at either and in keeping with some of the comments that the board has made over the last couple of years about needing couple months about needing some space here. We've been either looking at expansion opportunities within this building or new office. At this point, we kind of narrowed it down to two things. There's in the not adjoining building, but next door building, 2377. There's about a 1,400 square foot unit there that would lend itself very well to a boardroom. And if we went that route, we would do some construction here where this boardroom would be removed. We'd have more offices along the wall and back here and create a larger kind of open space area in the center of the office, down that hallway that you walk down. In the handouts, I think that one is the 17 by 11 paper is the space plan for the space plus the boardroom. The other option is a unit at 357 Van Ness Way, which is just off of Van Ness Avenue and Delamo Boulevard in Torrance. For those that were on the board or went to our old office off of Western, it's pretty close to that location over there. That location on Van Ness is very much like this one was when we moved in here. It needs a lot of construction. They are more willing to build it to spec. And so the major, I think, decision that will help guide us is how important it is to be connected to the South Bay fiber network with our office. We built a connection to our network here. So this space is fully connected to the fiber network. And it would be relatively cheap to connect the 2377 building to the network. Because of its distance from the network and any existing nodes on the network, the 357 Van Ness option is quite pricey to connect to the fiber network. We have a little bit of funding left in our Measure M broadband grant that could help lower that cost. But at the end of the day, as of today, it'll cost somewhere around $225,000 from some other funding source to connect the Van Ness suite to the network.
That's in addition to the 100 and something thousand that we have that we could use.
You're right.
That would be over and
all
above.
in all, it'll be
So it's like
somewhere
the
between
300.
375 to like 425
Okay.
to connect the Van Ness option.
But we haven't looked into whether we would connect it to a regular operator until we found other funding or
Yeah, there's things that can be done in the interim.
Yeah, so, and the other thing that I added, David, was that there is gonna be construction over here. This building is going down and they're gonna put units up, so we can anticipate within the next 5 years, there's gonna be a couple of years of construction going on right in our parking lot. So there's really reasons to go both places.
So when you look at potential cost savings, holding everything else equal, there's about 240,000 in rental savings estimated by moving to the Van Ness location. Overall, it's a smaller,
Larger.
a less square footage charge. They do it a little bit differently there where they have the CAM, the common area maintenance fee, which here is incorporated into our rental rate. There it's separated out. That landlord is willing to agree to some sort of cap on the CAM so that the board has a little bit more certainty of, from a budgeting standpoint, of what the rental rate might be. Here it's all included. So what the square footage rate we pay here is all inclusive. I think the
other space is larger.
And the other space.
The other one is larger.
The other space is larger.
This current space plus the new boardroom is about 5,400 square feet, I think.
5,900.
5,900. And the other one is 6,700. Staying here, we would ultimately end up with 12 individual offices. The Van Ness one would end up with 10. The boardroom, if we stayed here, would be about 1,400 square feet. At the other Van Ness option, it would be 1,200. Both of them are offering similar initial like rent abatement options. One's for 50% for 9 months, one's 100% for 4 months.
And then what
Both
else?
have a 3% annual increase, so that's pretty standard.
I was gonna mention, if you look at the layout, what would happen is this room would be offices along this side and over there. In this room to offices. And then the center hall would be open.
The really pressing thing is we need to come up with some sort of path that we want to move forward with, because we do have an option of staying
Month to
month. It's called a holdover, but it's 150% of our current rent. So you're looking at close to $20,000 a month if we were to
We don't
go
wanna do
to
that.
a month option.
Mm.
So the goal is to really figure out what we want to do as soon as possible so we can move forward with whichever route before a June deadline actually moving. I think the June deadline is a much stricter thing if we're not staying here. Obviously, if we were to stay here, we would then just work out a construction schedule and how that plays out. If we're moving to Van Ness,
We might have to just go to telework. I
yeah,
mean,
but there may be a kind of like what we did pre-COVID when we were leaving the old office off of Western. We found some temporary space where we did kind of partial hybrid schedule and did board meetings and committee meetings off-site. And then COVID happened and we were all in virtual anyways, but that would probably be what the approach would be if we're to leave here.
So what we're asking you to do is to stay right now and just walk over to this other building and see that. Second thing, we're asking you to come back at 10:30 on Thursday morning to go to the Van Ness site and look at that so you can help us decide what that would be and what you think of it. There are pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
So we really would like your guidance and we need it as soon as possible so that we can really bring something to the board. So I don't know if anybody can let us know now about Thursday, that would be helpful.
I can probably do Thursday. My observation is generally, I don't think it's efficient having you guys, a boardroom in another building, right? I mean, I think if you look at just, you guys coming and going today in general meetings, I would offer up that, there's a lot of inefficiencies conducting meetings in something that's not in your, in this one locale, right? So that's one observation. Obviously, price is a, certainly a key. You guys being here, gals being here, what's your perception? Do you think you'd be comfortable in the Van Ness site?
Yeah, and I think that the floor plan, you could work on a floor plan.
Yeah, we
are about opposite.
We do think the Van Ness site is workable. Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's always workable is we used to go to city halls for board meetings, which of course, as you just said, is inefficient. But I mean, we could also not have such a big boardroom and go to city halls for board meetings.
Well, what makes the most sense from your perspective? I mean, you guys have done the deep dive so far. I mean,
From my standpoint, there's not really a clear winner.
Yeah, that's what we're having.
Especially if we want to stay connected to the South Bay Fire. That cost is so high that any cost savings you see from rent, if we were to have to pay for it out of general fund, is eaten up connecting to the fiber.
But my concern is the construction here and what that's going to mean to this whole area, what that's going to be like. And the Van Ness is a nice building. I don't think it doesn't have this kind of parking, but maybe we won't have this kind of parking anyway I don't know what, we have to look at the.
But it has parking, sufficient parking?
Yeah, it's more like industrial feel, so it's a bigger complex, I think, with smaller buildings.
It's very pretty though. It's just as pretty of surrounding.
It would be, we really would love to get your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're really conflicted on this and that's why we would really like you to.
We can make it work either way.
Yeah.
So how critical is the being connected to the network?
Well, that's the thing. I think if we got connected to Spectrum, let's say, and then in a year we worked with our new owner or something, maybe there's a way we could figure out how to get connected to the network. I don't know. And we have to, this just can't.
I would say our current activities though at this office doesn't require that
Right.
specific connection. We could be connected to any.
Because that was, you know, it's,
Yeah.
it's, at the end of the day, if it's, hey, you had to be connected to the network,
Yeah, that-
right? Then I'd say, well, okay, that's a showstopper and, you know,
Yeah.
next, right?
Yeah.
But
We don't do any of the transportation data stuff to warrant a connection to the fiber network to be connected to metro systems or anything like that. So at this point for us, it's more of a very, very high speed, secure internet for when we're doing.
Well, I guess
these
it's,
meetings, which I think we can do with any kind of.
Right.
Right.
I characterize it, if it's a nice to
Nice
have,
to
it's
have,
one
no,
thing
right.
as opposed to must have, right?
Right,
Right.
it's not a
It's
must.
nice because we're the agency too, right?
No, I got it. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, so again, it's not, you know, that's the thing. If it's nice to have, okay, then maybe we Van Ness and, you know, hey, what's that want to look like? How are we gonna get there? As opposed to if it's a must have, well, just take it off the table, right?
Come to these, Rodney? Okay.
We can eliminate that 240K then.
Yeah, if you eliminate the connection, the fiber connection off of the moving costs.
That's the Van Ness, all right?
The Van Ness becomes more appealing from a financial
Yeah.
standpoint.
Right,
But there's issues, I mean, anyway, and
right. But I mean,
The bottom line is, you guys are in this office every day.
we're here, you're right.
We're here once in a while.
If that.
It's gotta be what works for you guys because it's your building, it's your office, it's your everyday, I have to go to work.
but we want to make sure that,
Well, what makes the most sense and what fiscally makes the most, I mean, the cheapest the cheapest isn't
Always
always better.
Right.
So if you walk, I mean, if you go, hey, listen, this works better for us if we do X, A and B as opposed to moving over there. And, you know, then you got to factor in how long it's going to take to get Van Ness ready.
Right.
Is that a true cost and time? And, you know, so.
We have the same problem here.
yeah, so let's do this tour and then,
Yeah.
and if you can take the tour, but before you get up and leave, I have two things, yes?
I wanted to broach a couple things.
Oh, okay, and I was gonna, let me just say two things I was gonna say. One is, we're gonna try something new and hopefully it'll either work or it won't. On January 29th, we are inviting your city staff, especially new city staff, to come to the COG and learn what the COG is and how we help them and how they, you know, the resources we can provide. We're gonna send doing a flyer, we're gonna be sending it out this week probably to city managers and we'll send it to you. And we do encourage you to invite your city staff to come and learn more about the COG so they can take advantage of us. I've never done this before.
Could you also take the mountain to Muhammad? Could you come to our respective meetings, maybe stagger those and do a presentation in front of our more or less, I mean, for this community, obviously.
Yeah.
More than the staff, is that?
If you would like us to, we can definitely do that. It does take us like a year to get around to everybody.
Yeah, I know, yeah, that's.
But yeah, but if you want, and let me know if you'd like us to.
Perhaps those cities that request.
Yeah, if it's city requests, we'll always come. Yeah.
Right.
I would love.
Constituents really don't
You
know.
have two council members, whatever, if you'd like us to
Yeah,
come.
that's a whole nother issue.
So I should put you down, Hermosa, go to Hermosa.
Oh, I love it.
Put Lawndale too.
And,
Our
Okay.
newest member is the alternate for the.
oh, really?
Yeah, so it'd be good for him to learn more.
Yeah, oh, okay. And the last thing I was gonna say is we postponed the transportation committee today. An extremely important item, which was how we're gonna spend Measure M money. And this is the second month that we haven't had a quorum. John Cruikshank, who is no longer an elected official, was a stalwart and made the quorum a lot of the time.
Mm.
Very, very important. So it meets at 10:30 before the steering committee. We are ready. I suggested to the committee that they consider whether that should change the time. I mean, if nobody's coming, we should change the time. So they came up with another alternative, which was staying after this and just having the transportation committee after the meeting. Would you stay if we did that? Would that be more attractive to you? Number one.
Ooh,
Number two,
is there, should I go?
Thursday of the month at noon, going to lunch, so people could come on their lunch hour for the first Thursday at noon, which would be February 6th would be the next one. So, do you have any opinion on that? Like it?
Well, yeah, I do like it, but I would also say that if it is an important meeting where you need a quorum, it's, in these meetings, I think Natalie reaches out and says, hey, we really need a quorum, et cetera. That kind of follow-up in advance would be helpful to make sure that we're there. Otherwise, it seems like it's just kind of advisory, non-binding, not terribly important to be here. And actually, we're just gonna watch on Zoom.
It's very time consuming for us to keep reminding everybody. So, but these are important meetings and we want to have a lot of spotlights at the Transportation Committee this coming year. So, and is there any enthusiasm for besides staying at this meeting for a little longer and doing transport?
I'd rather come earlier.
About an hour and a half.
Bundle. It's hard for me to bundle them because of work.
Work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes I would come for the transportation and Barry would stay for this
Right,
hearing,
right.
right? Whatever works, but I made the observation in Transportation Committee, we'll pick on Redondo Beach. Hey, let's go, maybe we can just get some of Redondo Beach's $5 million that we've allocated, right? I'm just suggesting, right?
So
Anyway, part of this goes back to
No, that's
if we're not getting the participation,
Well,
right?
To be honest, I had to ask my city manager, what's the most important that you want me to go to? And he's like, the board meeting, just go to the board meeting, go to the steering committee. And then I started to go to the transportation for Metro Pass, or at least the Sea Line extension. So if you need people there, then sure, I'll prioritize making it, sure.
prioritize, we need, but that's the other thing, we need 4 people who will prioritize being there. That would help. Okay, Ronnie.
And also David,
I can make 10:30.
All right, yeah, I can do that, assuming I'm still on this.
So we're gonna.
After tomorrow's reorg.
Have to be here anyway.
Hopefully you play an alternate, if not a delegate.
So we'll just keep the same 10:30.
So we will keep the same 10:30 and I'll tell,
and just for everybody to know, Anne of our team does reach out to people, but maybe you don't recognize her name when it's coming through, like from the phone. So we are making phone calls. And so
Transportation at
if you see a text,
I love Natalie's text.
okay, so we can add that to it. Yeah, we can add that to it. It's coming from her if you're not recognizing the name sometimes.
okay, so Ray, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Oh,
It's all right, no.
But also ask Natalie to remind everybody about.
She's awesome about nudging.
When she's doing.
And then seriously, I think we all appreciate her consistent nudges.
Absolutely. And now that Ray's coming, I definitely will make.
Is that a beach city thing?
Well, we got Manhattan Beach in the house now, so we can carpool and
okay, Ray, do you wanted to say something?
a couple, two things. Number one, I don't know if there's an appetite for, I don't want to take over the rest of the meeting.
go ahead.
We're already over schedule. On our either city efforts, or is there an opportunity when we got county rep here to talk about what we can do to help with the crisis? And because we have a lot of pieces going on individually, but there's no real collective engagement. I mean, I was just texting with folks who sent trucks to this place that they were accepting something, then they're not. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to sort of synergize our efforts, maybe look for efficiencies. And so the left hand knows what the right hand's doing. And if there's an opportunity in Torrance or Gardena or whatever to assist, because we have a lot of people that want to do a lot of things. And we also understand that right now there's too many people doing too many things. And if we need to pump the brakes, then that's fine, and focus on A and B as opposed to the whole laundry list of things. So I'm just looking for, a way we can sort of synergize our individual efforts and come up with a collective thought plan.
Yeah, because I would agree with that. I mean, we are getting from LA County, yearly, here's the place where you want to go. But, I can tell you, we had one of our local restaurants, they were collecting stuff and it's just that they got overloaded, right?
Right.
And
I think it's a marathon, not a sprint.
No, exactly.
And it's interesting it's amazing to see everybody rally. It's incredible, but a lot of people aren't addressing the specific need.
Right.
They're doing what they think they should do to help. So we're getting I personally think we're gonna have a crisis with too many clothes.
Yeah.
People don't have closets to put them in.
Right.
They don't have homes. So I think pumping the brakes, it's an overwhelming abundant amount of stuff available and everybody's full.
Yeah,
that
right.
Stuff. So I think pumping the brakes.
We have literally two trucks right now
Yeah.
sitting at our collection point that has been turned down.
I have so many people calling me, Jesselyn, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm looking for the need. Our office's direction right now is to coordinate with Red Cross and the bigger folks doing the bigger work. So it's all
Right.
centralized.
So would your office get a request from one of your fellow supervisors in terms of, hey, here's what we need? Because I think if you put out to us, hey, listen, here's what we need, and here's, maybe formula, these 5 things and these 5 things only, and separated, sorted, we can make that happen. And we can deliver to wherever.
I'm in
wherever.
contact with the other elected offices that have this happening in their district,
Right.
and they're even like, yeah, I feel like I'm almost annoying them, or
Right.
like they're just trying to address the crisis. So
Right, because there's a big event right now with Dignity,
yeah,
right? And Skechers and all these folks that are planning.
I think that what my answer to your question is the city managers are meeting on Wednesday. And I think that that's a place that you should ask your city manager who does go to those meetings to bring that up, because they can do the coordination better than anybody.
Yeah, I'm not relying on city manager. No offense to our city manager, she's great, but I'd rather.
people come to you too, I'm sure.
I'm looking this sort of in the city, outside the city. I mean, we're just kind of doing it to help as opposed to council members and
I think
mayors.
the easiest big need is giving blood or air purifiers, water, and masks. Those are the biggest needs.
Okay, and so if
And that's the easy one,
so to the extent you can push that out to us,
Mhm.
and then, okay, if I collect a room full of that stuff, what do I do with it? We can get it to you.
I don't do that yet.
No, I know. See, that's kind of what we need is,
Yep,
here are the
I
10
know.
things we need in this form and fashion.
Yeah.
And here's where you can take it.
So
If
would
you can-
that make sense to have it go to Jackie and Jackie, hey, send it out? I don't.
Jackie,
I'm
but
just-
Jackie needs more.
No, but again, it sounds.
No, I think
it sounds
it'd be
simple, right?
great,
It's
yeah.
just, hey, here's what LA County, here's what we need,
Right,
here's what we need and what to do with it.
right.
Because at least that way, we're uniform
Yes.
in the ask, and we're uniform in the, satisfying the need, right?
Right. Has to be,
You should wait 3 months when the original stuff all comes in, and then everybody goes, well, I took care of that, I'm moving on. You might have more of a niche to fill.
Well, but I think that was kind of the point, right?
Oh, I missed the point.
You're right.
No, yeah.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
because we understand the system's overwhelmed and a lot of people that want to help, and this is a marathon.
Yeah.
But if there are specific needs, like the 4 things you just mentioned, if we can push that down, and then it can be
Down and out,
distributed among us, and then all our cities can collectively collect and.
I think blood is easy because you know where to go do that, but like the other stuff.
I didn't know there was a need for air. I mean, I intuitively did, but anyway.
And I'm wondering if that's a local need too, right? Because depending on the winds, right, that smoke's coming to us, right?
Yeah, I was in the marina Saturday. It was like an ash storm.
So what about our own residents and
Yeah, I
at risk, like,
I mean, we are impacted, but not those closer to.
okay.
So if you go on
Not that we don't care about our constituents.
I know, we had a new.
We're okay. Our folks generally are okay, right?
the Red Cross blood site, City of Gardena Police Department's having a blood drive on the 17th.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not showing up for those blood drives because of all that's going on.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, okay. That message out.
Okay,
Yeah, if I get a need sent to me, I know I have folks to rally. So
do.
definitely will take advantage
So
of that.
should we go back and say, pump the brakes to all our do-good organizations?
I don't officially want to say that. The other tricky part is you don't want to.
Turn off the faucet.
Turn off.
You don't want to-
But then but the
Tricky.
faucet's filled with gunk
Yeah.
that gums up, right? If the faucet's filled with gunk, that's gonna clog up the system.
Yeah.
And you got folks sitting in line 3 hours at Santa Anita just to get to the front. They go, we're not taking clothes.
Well, there's.
Yeah, everything that I've seen,
they already put that notice out. Don't.
Yeah.
close it.
Yeah,
They need water, they need diapers.
Condo.
I heard everything I've seen from watching it from that area, everything I have seen is not to bring items anymore. They're asking actually for financial donations for
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
nonprofit,
But my point is,
but,
who is asking?
yeah.
How do they want it? And who do we deliver to? So if it's just give to Red Cross, that's different, but we know there's the LA County needs link, and then we know there's a county fire, and
Right.
so all we need is the who, the what,
Yeah.
and how do we get it?
Okay,
That's
we can
good.
make that happen. Okay,
That's
well,
good.
let's go take our tour
Yeah.
and we'll see everybody.
Thanks, Russ.
February 20.
See you next week.
Brandon,
John.
emails.
John, can I hit you up?
I know, I mean, I see you online, but it's.
Yeah.